We're on the record. I'm Kate Bauer, and I'm chair of the Region 9 Stakeholder Advisory Committee. And this is our second zoning meeting. I'm hoping that it's not as painful as our first one was. But we did we spent some time going over some ground to make sure we all understood how it works. And my hope is for my colleagues that we can build on that work tonight and not rehash some of the things that we did. Before we get started, we have a couple pieces of housekeeping. I need approval of the agenda for tonight.
I motion to approve the agenda.
Second. All in favor? Thank you. And I need a motion for approval of the minutes from our last meeting.
I motion to approve the minutes.
Thank you, ladies. All in favor?
Thank you.
So before we get started, Eric, I think you have a couple of housekeeping things as well.
Yeah, just a couple, I'm not gonna do much talking, I only left the mic, so, just really quickly, really, brief. Just, again, tonight's be the exact same things we did for the Saturday meeting we went to, an hour shorter. We're gonna talk about the communities we haven't reached yet. And then again, we're gonna have a quick break and then we'll go back to finish it up tonight. It's the plan, next, Thursday, we are going to have our hopeful final meeting for the preliminary review, and we'll knock out the vision statement and draft strategies from today. And we'll talk more about that. So this is the overview for tonight, very similar to what we did, what, 2 weeks ago now?
So, we are doing things a little bit differently than we did at our earlier meeting. As we did last Saturday, a week ago, we will open the floor for public comments first. You have 2 minutes to speak. First, is anybody online who wants to speak? No?
If you're, I do see a raised hand in the please.
Yeah.
All right, Ms. Harwood Davis, we are going to change your permissions. You should be able to mute and then provide a few minutes of testimony.
And you have 2 minutes. Eric is going to keep time and he will let you know at 90 seconds when you're 30 seconds left.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. And I'm going to keep it very short. Can you hear me okay?
No, thank you.
Yes, I'm Melanie Harwick Davis, and I appreciate everything that you are all doing. I know this is a lot of work and a lot of hours, and you're way down in South Carolina. I'm sorry that I couldn't have joined you in person, but it looks like you have a good crowd there and well-represented constituents and peers. So I just want to emphasize, of course, my focus is very much on environmental issues and our stormwater management, our forests, all those things that we need to help build our resiliency. So I don't know about you, but as we get like a switch, we flipped over to, 80 something degree days. I'm looking for places to park under a tree, so that my car doesn't start to boil. I think there's just everyday life we walk through and understand and sense, innately the importance of our forests. And of course, the clean waters and what they do. So I just want to say in a very broad way, to keep that in mind and, really hold to what the larger plan 2040 is with focusing our development and density where it needs to be focused and on revitalization. So thank you. That's all I want to say.
Thank you. Okay, we have 3 folks who have signed up to speak tonight. Same ground rules apply. You have 2 minutes at 30 seconds before the end. Eric will let you know. And by the way, we have pizza over on the wall. And it appears that the SAC folks who wanted it, have been able to help themselves. I don't know if you were hungry, Audrey or Hamilton, but before we open the door, if you're hungry, but there are plates and pieces, so feel free to help yourself. Our first speaker is Tim Martin. If you would introduce yourself and tell us where you're from, and you have 2 minutes.
Tim Martin, I'm with Arundel LLC, formerly Bain Gearing, we're civil engineering and land surveying firm. Our address is 2661 Beaver Road, building 800. first of all, I want to thank you for your service to the county and volunteering for this committee. I know it's a lot of work and it's been a lot of time. Don't about that. I'd like to briefly discuss the Road River Marina application, CDR9YO 7A, B, and C. I represent the owner of Road River Marina and listen to the brief discussion from the April 20th advisory committee meeting. I would like to provide some clarification regarding the request. Those zoning line changes on 007A, B, and C were intended to follow historic uses and existing uses on the property. 007A is currently split zone MB and R2 and has historic marine use pier currently embedded in the MB zone. There is also a pool that is in the MB zoning as well as a structure that is split R2 and MB. The intent of the realignment application is to realign marina zoning with historic uses as well as the future use of property. The owner is not opposed to the MA2 zoning. There is no long-term plan for boat racks, and the MA2 zoning would be appropriate. The proposed lot line adjustment is intended to follow the long-term existing land use. Again, the applicant is not opposed to MA2. There is no intent for intensification. 007C. This is another split zone property where the intent of the application is to align with one of the current uses, both that historically been stored on the property as well as part of the operation to the south. The owner does not have an intent to intensify the uses. The intent is to simply align the zoning uses with the current use. We believe MA2 zoning would accomplish the objectives. There was a meeting set up with Kelly Vance and the critical area team in May 9th to discuss future property line adjustments and the line of property lines with the user. The property line adjustments will not occur until the review 9 process is complete. That's all I have to say. I don't know if you discuss this at the meeting or not. Thank you.
Thank you. Can you ask a question?
Is this in Mayo?
Yes.
Brian Connor?
Hi, my name is Brian Connor. I'm the owner and operator of Road River Marina. I've been a lifetime resident and born in Anne Arundel County, and I have been at the Road River Marina since I was 20 years old. I've been there 40 plus years. The Road River Marina is located in the Edgewater area. It's a family-owned business. It was founded from the Belkies in the late 1800s. Has been a marina since the 20s. I have been in the operation of the marina and have made improvements and have kept the marina and somewhat the same as it has been, except the boat racks, which I did go through comprehensive rezoning to get boat racks. And I know there were some comments made about boat racks putting up on the hill of the MA2 property, which is the MD is right next to it. That, you know, I called the county wanted the boat racks up there. When I went through the comprehensive rezoning, boat racks wasn't permitted. And I sat on the board, the 8888 bill for doing that. And that's when I worked to get the county to agree with racks in a close proximity to the water within the 25-foot buffer. And I spent a lot of time and effort doing that, and they realized the boatel is mostly close to the water. So I've never had any intention of putting the boat rack up on the upper level. And you know, I'm here to, you know, I'm trying to get my property aligned and family, my sons, and I have 7 grandchildren. I don't ever intend of selling my marina. Continue the history of the Belkin family there. I own, you know, a lot of property on Germantown Road that I bought, that Mr. Belkin came from Germany. And that's why it's called Germantown Road. 5 brothers came from Germany. I've tried to keep the marina and all of his property after it for my family, my children, and my 7 grandchildren. I have homes for all 7 grandchildren. That's probably the first one. But thank you very much. If you have any comments, I'll be happy to answer.
Thank you,
very
Mr.
much.
Connor. Matt Johnson?
Sure. Well, thank you very much, everyone, members of the committee. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know what to sign up like that. I mean, it's all people mind. You don't have enough process. You don't have all the. You do not. Okay. No, you're good. No, right. So I'm on the Mayo Peninsula. I'm also the executive director of your local water district, Arundel Rivers Federation. And I'm here tonight, similar to what Melanie Hartwick Davis said over Zoom. And that's just to remind you all to balance the environment as we look at these zoning applications. So your river keeper was out on the South River just yesterday. He found a tributary of the South River where we got a dead zone yesterday in May. It's not supposed to happen. It happened because that tributary, which once was covered in forest, the land, has been developed by urban sprawl. Okay. Whenever we cut down a forest and replace that with suburban sprawl or urban sprawl, we can increase the nitrogen pollution to the rivers by 10-fold. We can increase the sediment pollution by 40-fold. This isn't everywhere, but this is a possibility. And we don't have to look very far. Our river keepers seeing this in the rivers now. That nutrient pollution, that sediment pollution, it causes the algae to bloom. That bloom pulls the oxygen out of the water and makes it so that there's a dead zone, like she found, where no critters can live. So I just implore you to remember a slogan that we say in the office all the time, that what we do on our lands, we do to our rivers. So there are large impact forests that are asking for changes to density, to increase the density. I'd encourage you to protect those last remaining large impact forests, not just approve or reject, not just reject an increase in density, but consider going down from RL or from R1 and R2 to RLD, residential light density, to protect those last remaining forests and our rivers. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm sorry, I cannot read your handwriting, so.
Sorry.
Stand in.
My name is Manny Ball. I'm a resident on 3985 Germantown Road. I just came in to be involved with the community, but I've known Mr. Connor and the whole family, residing there for about 13 years now. And I've yet to see anything that he really did to harm anyone in the neighborhood, nothing but improvements as far as I've seen. You know, in comparison, my property backs up to another marina that is granted, where we have seen really bad influence from bad clientele, or well, maybe one figure seen bad clientele, but it's just not operated, being hands-on. And in comparison to the standard and the class that Mr. Connor and his family holds as a standard for their marina clients and the residents, everything that he's done to the roads, quite a few, myself included, and some of the neighbors, we've been just going at it with the county with like potholes, trees, trenching, road signs. Nothing's getting done. And we sit down, we talk, and then with Mr. Connor and how he approaches things are just starting to move forward, getting cleaner. A lot of times he does things on his own expense, not asking anybody to even kind of jump in for what he had to go in terms of whether he has to get an attorney or counsels to get response from the county. So the reason I'm here today, again, just to clarify, never seen anything with the family about improvements and really good surroundings and what they brought up live down there in the area. So thank you so much.
Sir. Yes. That ends our public comment section for tonight. And we're going to start our discussion with. And Michael, you're going to walk us through this. I would remind the members of the committee. We set some ground rules when we work together about being focused, being succinct, and being respectful. And I would hope that we hold those guidelines as we work with you.
Quick question.
Yes.
On the road river, the thing with it seems like it's a little bit of a different scenario with regard to the MB versus MA2. If they wanted to say, okay, we're not looking for the MB, but a lesser zone of MA2, how might they go about saying, hey, you know what, we heard your thoughts. You know, it sounds like what they're saying is we heard your thoughts, we listened to your thoughts, and how do we, you know, what we're interested in is the lesser thing. How do they go about? Is that something that we would take up at some point, or?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
And yeah, to follow up on Concord River, it sounds like the gentleman is saying, under comment section reflects what the city committee was supporting last time to you'll go ahead with their recommendation to put the fronts of the property in the residential R2 and the back side to MA2, keeping what's MA, what's going to be for that parcel the same, but so it sounds like they're agreeing with the SAC recommendation.
Okay, good. So
That'll be documented, stuck in the notes, that'll be tracked as we have tables tracking which these applications. And as they mentioned, we're gonna have ongoing conversations with planning and zoning about lot line adjustment things. So, well, these our kind of conversations about having of the course of, you know, the entire process focused on the council. But it's nice that the owner kind of came forward and said, so that they kind of can align with what the SAC was driving.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, that's helpful.
One thing before we get started. Couple of people have asked me about process. You know, we have this meeting and we have another meeting on the 9th of May. What comes out of our work will go to the public. The expectation is that there will be a subsequent meeting of this body to look at the public comment before final recommendations from us go to the PAB. So you'll have one more chance to put your hands on any changes or recommended changes that emerge from the public comment period over the summer. So you're not going to be quite done. Thanks.
Okay, so to remind folks about this process, kind of content is, right, this group has been meeting since October, talking big picture about kind of what your vision is for the region, talking about what strategies going to city county implement that vision, or what's the things like protecting the environment, transportation, housing, and stuff. And then last week's meeting and this one are going to focus on the how we manage growth, development, county, and land conservation through three sets of maps that we adopt: development policy area map, plan land use map, and the zoning map. And in the fall, we had an application period where property owners could apply for zoning changes. So this happens about every 10 years in the county, with opportunity for others to apply for comprehensive zoning change. A couple different methods you can try to do zoning change. This one's kind of the broadest reach for that. So we'll continue on as we did last meeting, where we'll have to go community by community. We'll talk about that development policy area. That's that broad context of how we see this area developing in the future. Then the plan land use, which is also a policy setting map that indicates types of uses from different densities of residential, commercial, industrial, maritime. And then finally talk about the zoning. And at that point, we'll touch on owner applications. And also this will, the staff have conducted detailed analysis of these maps over the last several months as well. We'll bring forward to you the comments of SAC. Now, as we discussed last time, a lot of the staff recommendations are pretty administrative in nature. Things like making sure the zoning lines are property boundary. Things where we've researched the property and found out that, for example, there have been acquisitions by the parks department. So let's see if we move those over to OS. We'll point out, we'll talk about those generally. We'll point out the ones that are going to see in terms of changing. We'll start with the Thurston. So we left off last time. This is just a little cartoonish map I put together, reminding us of things that we've said about this area, right? We focus on the crossroads of Thurston. The red hatch marks there indicate where the village sector has been identified there. That comes from the small area plan back in the 2000s. It's carried over into plan 2040. We talked about reducing the size of the village center, and like gray block there, because there was comments about folks who have local knowledge saying, hey, a lot of this work is wetland. Let's not consider that being an area that we want to encourage development. We've also talked about the need for sidewalks, to make it safer for people to walk and connecting the church to the field. And we've heard from State Department of Transportation talking about they've got up some feasibility study of those sidewalks and bring that idea up again, as said in the past. We've also talked about in the economic development night about putting some kind of designation on this area, as well as the Village Center and Mayo and Galesville, that would allow the county's interim economic development corporation to give low or no loans to support building renovations, facade improvements. It's focused on to maintain the businesses that are there and good repair. And then we also talked about housing conversation about that places like this where we already have development, we already have some commercial uses and other activities, that these would be areas that this group would be interested in exploring and the potential in the future of maybe more different types of housing than others. So with that in mind, let's look at the mapping for the development policy area. Nice for color again. The green on the left is rural and coastal areas. The blue on the right are peninsulas. And then the yellow is on the conservation, neighborhood preservation areas. And those kind of pretty. That's neighborhood preservation, it's kind of our suburban residential areas. Intended that destinations that those areas stay in that type of development, there might be opportunities for some levels of infill, that's not where we're focusing a lot of future growth. For the, I would say too, this group has talked from the beginning about saying, we want to keep low amount of development in a scope area of the county. Environmental sensitivity, road concerns, one way in, one way out, peninsulas, flooding concerns. So we hear us a lot tonight, talking about housing, generally our intent has been to maintain or reduce the allowed density of housing in most areas. And then again, you see the red hash mark around the middle center, and then the gray area thinking about how to carve out portion of that. I want to see that line as draw that map for me. It just follows the entire parcel line. You first before say we kind of don't like splitting parcels. But I'm not sure if this would make sense to draw that all the way to the road, or some of that road frontage is currently zone commercial. I see this group had thoughts about whether we should retain some of that commercial frontage in the village center, or just take out that entire boundary.
My opinion is, you got the whole corner.
Well, where does that go?
You were talking about corner from
Yeah.
So like-
Field Church and Road and Bayside Road. No difference in the lay of the land.
Remember, this is a policy designation. Their zoning is a legal requirements that they can come in, they can apply for something with that existing commercial zoning. They would have to get, wetland delineations and everything to meet the requirements. So that's just kind of policy designated, and I'm saying, would you want them to, have kind of consideration for, say, for example, if this program from Development Corporation happened, they would probably apply to that village center, say property and they're eligible, and that'd be kind of, maybe wouldn't be there.
Where does that end? Like, so like, I'm thinking, like, where is Evans in, is that like in that spot that you're talking about moving, or like, where does that end? Like, I'm trying to think about, like, is that like little square right that, is that where like the South County Chamber office is and that other parking lot, and then like the big spot on the other side of where? Like in the longer parking lot.
Are you considering just the undeveloped parcel?
Yeah, it's not trying to, what this group discussed, what we're on the.
And I'm just trying to figure out where that parcel.
Yeah, it's like a Chamber of Commerce property over here, so that will be included, I think we're talking undeveloped.
Right.
Okay, so that's not, so I'm trying to think how many acres that is from like, what's that? I think it's a flooded wetland forested area. But from rail far.
You're talking about the property all the way up to the Evans property, not including the Evans property. Or are you including that? It's kind of hard to change the zoning on something that's already.
There's not some zoning.
It's kind of hard to see, but the red hatching is the village center overlay as it is adopted by Plan 40. The red, the tank, the kind of whitish color, they're all opaque, is the adopted zoning, that's what's currently there. And then these big blobs of yellowish that I put on, those are the wetlands for the RGO.
So just not field verified.
So roughly, it's probably never going to be allowed to go into development as is, correct? So having it designated for development as a village center is probably not going to happen regardless, just due to the geographical
So that's
characteristics on the ground.
another support from the center, I'll take it all in.
And that's not quite true when you say it wasn't field tested, because the owner, I don't know if Maginoff still owns that corner, he has tried for plenty of years to try to do something with that, and it has been field tested and come up, it's a wooded wetland.
Yeah, I think we're saying slightly different things, and I'm not disagreeing with you, I'm saying that this lot is not from that field work that I've been done, this is from, later we might have got from the state or the county based on some kind of.
So is it GIS from the state, or what is exactly you're talking about?
National Wetlands Inventory for the DNR wetland layer, they are a little bit different. But what it did say, it's flooded wooded wetland. It's exactly where that yellow blob is might be over 1 feet or up.
And take up one of the big rings.
Yeah,
Removing it from the village center designation, would that potentially impact future funding for some projects that could go there? I know some village center projects have received some special fund sources in the past. So how is that gonna affect that?
Well, I think if you remove just the undeveloped, like the lot of that one, I would like almost leave, because I think 5527, that's for the commercial business. If that's where the commercial business starts. It was like I think it looks like, honestly.
So I'm hearing right now, we can all agree that this piece should not be in the village center. The green over top.
Up to the roadway.
And then to the west. Where this, it's kind of hard to see the double layers on, but it does look like there is a business there.
What's the business? It's that's, I think, that's Evan.
it is currently built, correct?
Yes.
So, and there will not be an expansion made.
Not to that place. Well, you don't know, it could change hands and
Yeah,
people could try to do something.
I don't think they'd be able to do anything with it.
That's correct.
This big one, leaving this area, I think this is part of that parcel, so it's when the green is not over there. Do we want to touch anything else, and remove it from the village center?
What is the parcel?
This one,
Well, yeah, okay. I mean, on the other side of the road, you're talking about over where the empty ball shop building and a few other places. Over that way, so there's plenty of commercial buildings along that stretch
Yeah,
that
are right for development.
are right for use, they're for sale or rent or whatever.
Good. So how do you have agreement on, removing the space in the growth center that Jesse got one?
There is the church there in the corner of Foxborough. Spaceway.
That's for rent or for sale also.
Yeah.
I heard it been sold, but I don't know whether it's the same church or it's gonna turn into a.
But for our purposes, it doesn't matter. It's within the commercial center, and that's what it's about.
Okay.
And it's taken up.
Or breaking up the dog.
Move on to the next slide, talk about the planned land use. Okay, development policy, we're kind of our general direction, the next one's planned land use, it starts to give more specificity to the types of uses we want to see in different places, but again, this is still policy, the zoning is where it's. The colors here are the tan and light tan, darker tan are the residentials, low density residential, lighter, low density for the little darker. The green are the dark green is rural, and then we've got the conservation around the code area and parks and open space, and the red is commercial. So the changes you see out here are mainly us doing administrative checking on needs and ownerships. There's a lot of little parcels that are required to be code, so we went through, checked, and made sure that if it was owned by the county, we're calling it parks and open space or conservation land use, that'll be the open space zoning. Some, there's some private people properties there that were probably just inaccurately mapped as conservation in 2040, double check that they are private ownership, we're moving it back into one of those residential land uses, so it aligns with what's currently there. We've also looked at there's this odd geographic parcels or around waterfronts along the old communities, that's brand management. So looking at changing that one to green space, I believe that one. And we'll check with the community to make sure that that aligns with what it needs, you know, obvious Water developments have a dedicated open space and beach parcel, so we're looking at moving those to open space. If the plat code says that's their use, we'll reach out to community to confirm that, and then looking at the zoning change to OS, to OS. That. And then, you can also see the outline of, the zoning application number 1 up there next to Christopher's. We'll touch on that in a minute. It's outlined here, it's the plan change, we'll discuss that. Any questions about those plan management changes?
So, yeah, I have a question. I read your little, communication about this. And so from what I gather, the county is leaning towards, if it's community owned or county owned, that's what they really want to keep or move to open space. And they want to get out of, residential parcels being zoned or classified as open space. If that is what, is that, am I reading that right?
Yeah, I think that's a fair assumption.
But I think,
I think it's a little more than that. We do have privately owned conservation areas.
because of land features or what?
Because they've been permanent. In some cases, the property that will, one that. Taking that. But it's more than just community.
Okay, so development like parcels that have been,
Their development rights.
if they've been extinguished, those would also be taking it one step for communal parcels. Either county owned or neighborhood owned, whatever, but from what I'm seeing is that is where the county is headed.
Okay, we're good with the plan land use, move on to the zoning. The zoning, we're talking about kind of 3 types of changes. There's consistency, that's where we're taking what was adopted in 2040 plan land use, and we'll change the zoning to match that up in plan land use. Again, this is typically, mostly just pretty administrative. They might follow the open space principles that we just laid out. Then we have some that are staff recommended. That's where staff have looked at things and say, we have a reason to think this should be changed, and the zoning, the plan right should be changed. And then we have the owner applications. So again, what we're looking at here, here it's all in the plan land use. That the changes here are like Steve 100 at the top there. That's a county owned parcel site. So it's friendly residential. We're going to move that to OS. The county owns that as on the flip side, there's a couple small parcels in Brandon Manor that are it's residential, and they might have a house. If you guys are in a situation, you might have 3 small lots right next to each other, maybe multiple developments. You have the house on 1 or 2 lots, and then an adjacent lot. And we're saying, well, if that's all the same ownership, that's a decent on it, let's pick up all the residential development matches instead. So that's what we're doing in that corner. Let's see. Then you can see the owner application as well. C 2001 and 2 and then record 5 look at that. We'll back to that numbering later. 002 was the interesting case where someone actually an owner came in and wanted to reduce their zoning from this was R5 or 2. We supported that. This whole group supported that in an online vote. And then the 001, let's talk about that. This is next to Christopher, the problem with Morel Farm. You go to the next slide. Yeah, here's the summary of the votes on that. We did not reach consensus on that first one, so we need to talk about that a little bit further. We go to the next slide. Here were the votes for that 001. And then for the next one, this is a copy of the subdivision plat from that property that this is when they created a lot for Christopher's. And it's really fuzzy when I look on the screen, it's blown up. But, so this is the Christopher lot, this is the row farms across the street. So the residual that's left of that parcel, when they apply for the entire parcel is elevated. And this kind of parking on the common is areas that were put into wetland or forest conservation based on field delineations and meeting requirements through the development process of this. So as we think about that property owner, you know, the idea that they requested it was C3, so higher area, but the county was considering for the front piece outside of what's been delineated as natural features would be adjacent to the Christopher. And now,
Can I say something about that?
yes,
I think I made it in my comment, but county, in their decision. And I don't know if they were using some of the information that the property owner stated in the application, but that is not exactly true that it was an airport. It was a private landowner's personal airstrip. And it was never commercial.
Yeah.
Joe Miller just used it for his own. And he didn't have anybody else's planes there or anything.
yeah, I appreciate that. We did include the owner's rationale just directly, so that you guys would see directly what the owner said, as well as giving the actual application. Definitely, we're talking in public layers.
And also, when they put Christopher's in, they had to raise the whole property. I don't know how many feet. That whole parking lot is a warren of piping for the runoff to accumulate. But it eventually finds its way out the back of the property into forested wetlands and drain into South Creek. Okay, and then that's what the river keeper was talking about. But also, I would be concerned if for that property to be used in any sort of way, it would have to be filled. Which, if I was the property owner next door, I would be concerned about where runoff is going to go. And lastly, I would say that the reasoning that it is adjacent to a commercial establishment is reason enough to change the zoning is not quite. I don't think that's where we're headed with this. Otherwise, you can say the parcels adjoining Royal Farms would have a good argument to change their zoning from R1 or R2, whatever it is, to C3 or C1 or whatever it is. And lastly, we have to remember this whole Churchton area is the entranceway to the peninsula. And I'll say right now, I live in Shades. And we've had in the last year 3 people killed on Shadyside River. And I do not think that the people in Shadyside want to see a second Edgewater before they get to Edgewater, just to be able to get out of Shadyside to go to work in the morning or come home. So any expansion of C zone property, I think is not a good idea. I think there's plenty of room in Churchton right now for that has property that is already zoned commercial, that has not even been taken advantage of. So to expand on commercial zone property, I think would not be a good idea.
Okay. So anyone else have any comments they want to share on this side?
I have a question. Is this the Parks Liquors?
No.
Right side of, that's the right side of the.
Never mind then.
All in the overlay that we just looked at.
Correct.
It's right across. No, that's in the question.
It would have
I
been
know
outside. We drew that, with
Did the-
2040, we do the village center overlay,
The overlay,
To align with the commercial zoning.
So that's like basic pattern, right?
This is Christopher or my first, and this is the applicant property.
so we didn't extend the commercial overlay that far.
Yeah, and, the SAC, if started in, if he could recommend. Does not.
If we decided that we thought that should be commercial, we would recommend moving the commercial overlay across that property.
What is that low line again that cuts all the way up to 5610?
This is that historic area.
And, the yellow behind Christopher's. I'm assuming that is low.
This, the shading where my cursor is,
Well, what is the yellow that runs into the Christopher's property? And above that, even further.
That's not Christopher.
Yeah.
To the left of Christopher.
It's R1 zone. So do you have one of the maps there even had a tributary to South Creek Lake running right up behind the parcel. And there was also cut back into the late 20s, early 30s, they cut drainage ditches all through that back. And as kids, they used to ice skate. Up in the drainage ditches in the woods back.
Let me answer,
There it is.
does anyone want to speak on support of,
Yeah.
changes to commercial?
I'm not overly supportive of lots of commercial development in South County. But this feels like one place where its whole piece of property could continue contiguously the commercial center of what we are saying is true.
Yes.
Without creating overkill. And so in our push to be preserving the essence of South County, I don't think we can exclude all development. So for me, this is a place where I would take the bottom half of that property and allow it to be commercial. I don't know if C3 is the right rating, but allow it to be commercial like that, essentially.
So it sounds like, Kate has, the favorable thing going recommendation to the group. Carla said she had second.
I support as well.
Is there a group consensus on that?
My sense is there's a division.
We get show of hands, that would be favorable for that.
Just one quick question. That part of the parcel, what is that gonna be?
that would remain our.
R1.
And buy those subdivision plats that has restrictions on it that would allow development, except for about that tiny corner back.
It's also, basically with the wetlands, the further back you go on that parcel. And, I'd be surprised if they could get one house. So there's not a whole lot of difference between that whole parcel, except for maybe 30 feet up on close to the road that they already filled when they put Christmas in. And the parcel, on the other side is where we just decided not to include it.
How many of you would agree with the approach that I'm suggesting, that we allow that part of that parcel be rezoned commercial?
And I guess if this is not time to pass judgment on the idea of the owner.
No. No, the idea is a whole different discussion.
And
How many
then how many opposed?
I'm abstaining. I know the folks.
Okay.
So it doesn't quite meet the 2/3.
So we can report it that way.
Exactly.
Yep. Well,
Yes, it's okay, Ms.
I didn't
Because-
know this. I'm one person. So there are two abstains. I don't know, but just not sure what I think.
So
So there are
saying-
two abstentions.
That's fine, I mean, that's. If
Yeah, nothing
you
wrong
don't
with that.
have an opinion, that's fine too.
I guess what would matter is what is in a commercial zone. If it's. It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
We can think it's a grand idea or a terrible idea. The question is whether it should be permitted to be permitted.
Versus residential.
All gonna go out, some of them are here. And then if the whole neighborhood comes in and says, oh my God, what are you guys doing? You could in August say, okay, we change our, we take your mind, if we're doing it, it says we love it. It's a consensus, so
Yeah.
keep that in mind, the sausage making continues beyond this.
I can think of 4 other parcels along that strip that are for sale right now. That doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
Right.
Yeah.
But we're not even.
We probably we can vote again, or we can just right before no consensus.
Just a consensus. No consensus.
Can we go back, actually, a couple slides to, the money is on the radar, but the 5. This is another one where the person is proposing that this go to commercial. It's a smaller property. Currently, there's some kind of storage happening on it, in terms of like a dumpster and some piles of things. You gotta find out more familiar with it. But I can say type of questions apply.
This is the one that I was the most confused about. This is.
Behind.
No, it's not. Where is it? Not sure.
Behind Fred Barn, that barber's. Yeah. You can ask them.
Yeah. That's when we're going from.
It is, it was, it is. If everybody give me 1 second, I can point it out on the map. That is right where the cursor is, it's on the label as 5277.
Right here, that 5504 is.
Yes.
Yeah, just curious if what.
And I heard a request to zoom in.
Yeah, just, you know, what 50, okay, so there's shady side, no. All right. So this is what I have to want, I'm going to figure out.
This is not on the road, this is behind it. This is
This is over with 6 years.
Yeah. I don't remember seeing
Where it's like,
there's a road here. Whether it's a barber shop, it's been like, it's been like for.
Yeah, no, that was trends and then, what was Spike, you know where Spike Antique was?
Yeah.
And the dog place, it's
Yeah.
like, I guess the property.
I think the same question stands for this one. Could you see this being commercial? Do you think this is a good place to be commercial?
Yeah, one comment that in the online survey, you all responded to, 10 of you supported keeping it residential, but though 3 to disagree.
I think I disagreed only in the essence that I couldn't figure out what was actually. Yeah, what was, because of the odd shape of the road and everything, and all, like, what are they asking for?
Can we go? For me, I mean, I can't see anyone really wanting to live behind it as it currently sits. But at the same time, I feel like it would be, in its current, no, but I'm saying, but in its current thing, I also can't see it being like a viable business because of the way it's situated.
But that's not for, that's not for.
Yeah.
Right.
I can't see changing it to commercial because I can't see like.
There is right.
So one of the questions is, do you want to keep residential or commercial adjacent to the major road? as opposed to letting it expand back into what is now rectangular.
Keep residential, because then you risk the problem of, yeah,
Right.
keep it some commercial.
Exactly.
Sound good consensus on this side. We may tend to keep it residential, but we're going to disagree, so I want to bring it up. Yeah, but now that we have reached consensus as a group, we want to keep that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, jump forward to the shady side of the law. Here we go, now we're moving to the shady side of the north and east. Following up the road. From all series, straightforward here, it's all peninsula. And our general policies for peninsula are limit growth to protect environmental resources. The plan language map is on the right, again, the colors are the tan are your residential, the lighter one is low density, then low medium density for the dark one. And you can see the conservation lands in the green. The changes here are similar to what we said before for deal, some correcting of, the county required land up by Smith Harbor. Top here is returning, it's county owned, returning that to, conservation, conservation land use, or we to OS zoning. There are two other parcels of that area, conservation restrictions on their where when they make subdivision through states, this part of the says that open space cannot develop, it can only be used for open space recreation. So we're recommending those to go to a conservation land use OS zone. One thing I'll note here is south of Cedarhurst, there's the Dennis Point development, and this might be worth bringing you to look at. It's a little bit complicated thing where I meant to report that we had sent letters in the fall to properties where if we're gonna recommend that we change them to open space based on the Plan 2040 plan land use, to send a letter saying, are you okay with this? Make sure you're notified, or if you're an HOA that has open space, that has open space commercial, you want OS zoning. Dennis Point, HOA got back to us and said, this is their development here. So you can see that they kind of they went through a very arduous, complicated permitting process back late 80s, with a handful of lots are kind of clustered. This is the old OS zone here, the rest of it is R2. This space is in their subdivision plat, says this is conservation properties. This can't be built. They came back and said, the HOA came back to us and said, we have concerns about that because they're having issues with shoreline erosion. And they're concerned about how they can raise the funds to maintain the breakwater that they built there. They got some grants 10 years ago to do shoreline restoration work. They would like to preserve the opportunity at some point to maybe try to carve 1 or 2 more lots out of that big R2 area to help fund that shoreline work. Our assessment as SAC, on the critical area team, is like that's not likely possible for them to do because of the restrictions what's previously done there. And as you've heard, kind of our general principles, we usually want to apply these lands that are noted in their class as conservation to that. But we also have been willing to be flexible on that when the property owners make a strong case for us. So I thought this is worth the group thinking about. The options with this would be go ahead and apply conservation plan lands to OS zoning, large parcel. That would send the HOA, we probably hear more from them. They're recommending keeping it as is. So we talk about on the beach, saying, hey, we're not going to solution, but we keep it as is, or take the whole thing, take the OS off, and make it all R2. Again, acknowledging that if the wetlands are there, the wetlands are there, whether it's OS it's map, wetlands are there. So that environmental restrictions would apply no matter what the color is.
Well, your map's not showing the natural features of
Right.
those areas there, but same natural features that are on both sides of it are there too, for the most part. So, I'm sorry, it's marsh.
What are the two lots that they want, that they're hoping to do something with?
I think this is a conceptual kind of future, they haven't had that kind of preliminary engineering design.
They haven't planned it yet.
This is to say,
So they
they want about, if I need money to maintain, this is the concept that they have.
That's right, and they're hoping to be able to sell it to afford, to, you know,
Which is over in that bigger chunk of undeveloped yellow, right?
Right.
Yeah.
yeah.
And what's not marsh is forest, but, I mean, yeah, so.
There's no guarantee they can do what they want, it's just a question of
Yeah,
how to answer the question can of how it's.
well, I think that the fact that it's in a critical area, it's in the wetlands. I think if they keep it as it is, whatever they try to do in the future is gonna limit them. So why not just leave it as it is?
Actually, can you turn on the critical area? I think this is all RCA critical area,
Yeah,
which, has the highest strictest regulations in the critical area and applies at the 1 to 28.
yeah,
So actually, it's split, the dark green would be RCA and yellow would be,
The deed restriction should override the critical area.
yeah.
Really no reason to change anything.
Yeah, there's no reason.
So, yeah, there's restricted place.
That's right.
You don't have, some kind of overlay where the buffer is. The, from the title shore.
The 100-foot buffer, it might be in there.
It's not gonna be very long. Yeah, it's not gonna be. By leaving it as is, the burden of the proof is always gonna be on them, so why not just leave it and let them.
Why take away now?
That's right. But they're probably not really gonna have any way to be letting them.
True. It's pretty small. It's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
That's 100 feet.
It's down to the just down to the.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
There's 100 foot.
By leaving it, they. By changing it.
Continue.
Okay.
So that purple line is pretty accurate. As far as what the buffer is.
Line is going right to the buffer,
Yeah, I think.
but it's 100 feet off of tidal wetlands or tidal waters, or the land we're getting with tidal wetlands.
But by their highway development stop right at the purple. Yeah. Just the right hurricane, we're not gonna have to worry about this at all. Okay?
So yes, this is we just kind of keep it out of this. This group seems to be okay with that.
Is that how you need it?
This is not an application. This is not.
That's why you buy it.
It's going back to slide down.
Okay.
So back there, their community law.
This is a nice one.
One other oddball thing that happens is one of the group's aware of and for the record, this property up here is marked in our table as plan land use change, shades item 117. This is a county-owned park, it's a Snug Harbor Natural Area. We have it in Plan 2040 as park and open space. We're gonna change it to public use and maintain the current zoning. For most parks, we're taking them to park and open space, conservation and OSC. But, this property was acquired with rainwater conservation funds, they're federal dollars. And, when they get the federal funds, just as they do with county park and open space funds, we put a restriction on the deed saying this has to stay in open space, and recreation. And if it's not, you've got to pay them back, and you've got to, mitigate, get some other open space in themselves. So it's gonna stay as a park as a natural area, but from the county's perspective, it's kind of a risk management for our property. If, say, we need to run a pump station or something here, we need to take an acre of land. If we changed it from its current zoning, okay, if we change it from its current zoning to OS, we would devalue the property. And that would make it that much harder for us to financially mitigate back to the feds. It's kind of a property risk management thing. Again, it's one of those situations where on the ground, it's gonna stay protected natural area for, passive use.
I need to see where it
Not
is.
major conservation. But we're gonna keep it in the R2 zone, at
So
request of parks.
is it,
Keep it hard too.
Yes.
is it in Snug Harbor or is it?
That's where we are.
Yeah. That like near
So-
along the
People are too far. So the blue is not.
Okay, so it's right across the one side.
So where is it?
It's not.
Yeah.
Like nothing, I guess you drive by.
It's not there.
That's fine.
That's a downtown shady.
They did it all. That's not.
So
It's essentially our general rule that parks are gonna be.
It's not
Okay, so they bring stuff to you, because what's going on?
Just past.
Property is just that. So I can't remember one too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's.
where's the church? Where's the graveyard?
That's where the graveyard.
Yeah.
That's where the graveyard is.
Yeah.
8 acres, 8 acres.
But go back there and walk, like, how do you even?
So is that-
The county has, this is being silent part. When it's a natural area, they typically do not develop a lot of trails, they want to keep it. It's a
Natural.
wildlife conservation, so you're not. You're like,
You don't even know what's there.
you're not gonna see a big parking lot.
We breed ticks there.
And so where, okay, so that's Shady Rest Road at the very bottom, I guess.
I'm sorry, yes.
Yes, it is.
Good permanent.
Okay.
He's just.
Okay, so that's Lulu Scott Center next to it. That's the Lulu Scott Center next to it.
I think it's.
South of-
Lulu's gotta be down.
South of-
Yeah, south.
Okay.
That white building.
So when you say remain open area,
The zoning would remain R2. The plan language would change from. Sorry,
But it's county owned.
it's county, yeah. So, and then we're gonna change the plan land use, so that way it's consistent with that R.
So what's the difference between you guys wanting to keep your money and the folks that wanted to pay for a bulkhead on? Make sure.
It's actually part of the same situation.
So. You're okay with changing everything out of OS? As long as it's not communally owned, but if it's something of value to the county, you don't want to change it to.
I think that's too broad a statement to be fair, and this is that just be a complicated financial situation for the county, but it becomes as a property.
Yeah, and the other thing is, there are places that through our analysis, we said this should be open space zoning, and then property owners, communities came in and said, we don't want that to be open space zone, and we respected that. So this is kind of a conversational aspect to basically an academic analysis, and then we start to layer in, community feedback, property owner feedback.
But this is, so the property owner feedback is the county making a pitch, right?
Well, I can tell you that the county council, because this is a risk management issue, if for some reason this land use ever had to convert and we had to pay the federal government back for the money they gave us to buy this, the council is gonna do, public use for planned land use, and they'll do the R1 zoning.
Explain to me why it would be a risk to the county. Why do they have to come back to the feds and say, here's what we did with it, we did nothing, and they're afraid the feds might want their money back?
county owns property, there may be some other use that it's needed for in the future. That's unforeseen at this time that we can't envision, and my.
So like a firehouse or a.
Like a pump station. That's any of the pump station, you look at its property, they have to pay to vet back the money.
That's not sort of where the sewer lines are for a pump station.
No,
It's just an example, Bill.
Example, Bill. And maybe it's not completely applicable here, but that is.
What this is, you're in. We're going down a rabbit hole.
Well, not really, because this is down, this is in the dead middle of Shadyside. And this goes against sort of what the county's just been telling us about open space or R1 converting from one to another.
I appreciate that you have concerns with it, but I think for the benefit of the group and the kind of work we have to do tonight, I think let's just check and see, like. Yeah, is it a consensus, this is okay to do, or do people wanna vote?
We go from one to one.
It was money to buy it.
Well, they give us money all the time.
Yeah, there's federal programs to acquire and serve open space. Yeah, we apply for it, definitely as awarded. It was zoned R1 beforehand.
And then we're continuing R1.
Yes.
It would stay in purchase.
Yes, there's no change proposed for this property other than just the plan land use, which is just about public land.
Okay, so something we can move on?
Move on.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so, consistency changes, again, in line with what we just discussed, this would be, looking at the waterfront, talk to them, want that to be open space for their waterfront. This is the point community discussed. This is cleaning up ownership around Franklin Point, and it's state owned, or in the OS, privately owned, keep it residential. And then you got our applications. There's one corner property as well where it was the property's kind of L-shaped and it's split zone with maybe I remember the difference this one, where it's W1 and R1.
Get off of that one.
Right nearby.
Never heard of Marina.
Remember, sirs?
Yeah.
Well, yes, I will.
Remember which one are we doing?
WR1.
What, do we have a change number for the?
You have the SAC.
Is this Shadyside?
That might be with me. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the Marina.
This is, yeah. Which number is it? Yeah. I could tell it. It's got a number. Oh, thank you. Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Do you want to report this? Yeah, the application.
Yeah. But just, you know, so the property split out residential. So everyone like that. So we're going to be all.
Would,
We're on Snow Harbor Road. It's this kind of like Eagle shaped property that's split.
and they want, they're asking.
It'd be a consistency change, of that recommended change to say.
Which way?
From R1.
Okay.
It's currently split W1 and R.
And you're doing the other properties in the east.
That one gets handled by consistency already. This one wasn't within the consistency.
Yeah. So again, our preference to have one zoning district for properties that would have frontage on Snow Harbor Road adjacent to residential.
Huh.
Or we we can maintain that industrial,
So that backs up to their little marina.
it's a different owner,
Than the marina.
yeah.
But the marina could turn my piece of property.
Was the owner contacted?
Not yet. Not yet. We're gonna discuss it with this group first, and then we'll send out. Yeah.
Oh,
I think that.
I would say yes to R1 unless the property owner gives it back and then we would approve.
Yeah.
And then
I
I
think
think
that
we found it to
I think that would be
say,
fair.
support it generally, but the property owner comes back and say, we have, we'd like to have reserved out for expand range of that area.
I think that's fair.
Fair way to go.
Yeah.
So what did you decide?
So leave it as it is until the property owner is notified that there is a proposed change to that property all being R1. Unless the property owner says, no, I would like that option to keep that.
Correct.
So that I could potentially sell it to the marina.
And that proposal is only for consistency.
That's correct. It's only for consistency. So that reserves the property owner's right to do with it. Unless they release that and say, yeah, go ahead and do it all R1.
So when they sold, say that marina changed hands, after our folks changed hands years back. And beforehand, before it changed hands, it was both parcels owned by the same person, so they kept that piece, I'm assuming, and sold the marina. And there is some kind of.
Like different parcel, I think that's the parcel that we're talking about is the one with the irregular shape. The
Yeah.
parcel you're talking about is the little square one up there for.
So this is the one furthest away from the road.
Yeah.
They're one.
No,
This one is,
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that one's still.
Yeah, they may want to keep it all on.
That's still would.
Yeah. Notify the owner, and then we'll, whatever you call it. Yeah. Okay, good. Now let's move on to the slide. Voter applications. There was consensus on the online voting on each of these. Staff recommendation.
Right. So we're not gonna have a, no, same side.
Wedding venue instead.
You're gonna have. Where are we?
Confirm with the group, like you're going to church, policy area, the overlay, the center, the plan, we're all.
Why wouldn't they just go to the?
Okay.
And the rest of it is. Yeah.
we take a break.
we take 7 break.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
We've got West River, Dalesville, Edgewater.
Good.
We don't have to-
Talk a lot about open space.
West River, this is similar to what we see in the previous ones, zone policy area, land use, that zone policy area. Predominantly rural, got full spot area preservation, we're not recommending any changes. Plan land use, you can see that, Rockwood Park, park open space, we use the OS zoning, county park space. This is a rural property that, back when 40 thought there was an even on it that the development rights through, so that's gonna go back to rural, maintain the current RA zone. Down here, you can see a couple of properties around Cedarly subdivision. Again, this is space where the subdivision sets aside a large parcel as conservation open space. So we're gonna call conservation of OS zone. All those sound good?
Yeah. Yeah, my question, the piece that you thought had an easement, where is that? Yeah.
Along Muddy Creek to south of Manhattan.
South of Kendall on the west side?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. The rural legacy program, but that does interesting. So we've got to maintain the current RA zoning and be rural.
Is that old Sudley Road that's fucked up now? Okay.
Going much.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I said, but you can see one.
And this is a change to line of what we just said. Coming to call out here. We mentioned last time that we're looking for places where there are still kind of large lots that if we reduce the zoning intensity, then we can potentially service land and reduce the reduce the amount of development in that area. Along Chalk Point Road, as it comes up to Cherry Point, are whole areas like that, where it's got this area along Chalk Point on the east side. It's R2 in the front, kind of moves to R1 on the back of the lots, recommend the whole lot to go to R1. Yeah. And same thing to these properties to the north. And then Cherry. And we had just sent letters out to the property owners, so they'll be able to give us feedback. If they want community meetings, we'll come out and sit down and talk to them about the intent that they kind of, as we discussed, is to try to decrease the development potential on some of these sensitive peninsulas where it makes sense. Here they've got large lots, so there's potential we could.
What is the gray? What are they in that odd shape one over to the east?
Yeah, so again, these are different land maps, these are large block of set aside conservation subdivision plat, recommended go to OS.
Same with the ones to the east?
Yeah.
That's some kind of, and
Yeah,
that's off Dog Point Road.
it's in Cedar Lake.
That's a see.
Yeah, that's like, I think when you first drive into Cedar Lake, the spots like up there with the car thing.
Where you're, that's gonna stay what?
OS, because the plat public conservation. The plat creates those open space lots, it says it cannot be developed, have to stay in open space, so we're gonna change those to OS.
So was that from the Cedar Lake development that they platted that?
Yeah, it has to do with the subdivision process.
Okay.
Yeah. And again, it's covering the notified, I think, okay. Let's go to the applications on West River. We had agreements on all of them except number one, and this is probably the voting that say what we did. And West River one. This one runs over the vortex, it's 4921 million. This is the one where
Which number?
it's West River WRB 0001. Yeah. Okay. Thanks. This is one The property owner reached out to us, her name is Stacy Eccles. I say that we're not talking about property owners, prejudice, but just because she's on the agricultural committee for the county. I've been talking to them through this process to get ag perspective on this plan. And she looked at this and said, hey, my family owns property on the east side of Muddy Creek. We're farming it. The west side of Muddy Creek is RA, the east side is RLD. Why don't we take this whole area and move it to RA? And we have a back and forth in the office, like, I think like you guys had kind of split decision. I think in the journalist group would say, hey, it's farmland and they want RA zoning, sure. Why not? I'll explain his only concern is that she has voluntarily been talking to some of the property owners adjacent to her on the South Harbor, and they have not been supportive. So OPC's position as well. I want to get to fight with property owners about this. RA zoning is pretty protected. It allows them to do the agriculture they're doing. This is also RTA critical area. So it already is has protected the allowed density for any housing that ever was to subdivide. And the RCA is 1/20 anyway, which is the same as the RA or similar to the RA. So that's kind of why OPC recommended, let's just keep it as is. But I think this one could be commented. If this comes out to the public and the owners, you have some more conversation and they want to go forward with it. It's also one where the SAC wants to disagree and say, you know what, we should be pushing to this to the RA. It's fine for planning and zoning and the SAC does.
So I'm gonna go first this time, because this is West River. And I don't understand that now, homeowner wants to go rural, why we're, especially if part of our focus is to keep as much of South County rural. It feels like an oxymoron to me. Maybe it's not the right word, but it just feels inconsistent with what we said we want to do. If the homeowner is saying, I want to do this, we're not doing it.
I'll also do here, it's about a minute, yeah.
Well, I understand what you're saying, but for some of the neighbors to not want to agree with that, there must be reason. I don't pretend to know the reason, but whether the land they're farming now, they're not doing good farming. Maybe the neighbors don't want them to do bad farming on the other. I don't know, but I would recommend not to change it, and if they want to go forward with the change, to do that at a different locale, not have us back that.
What are the two options?
One on every 5 and one on every 20, so
Yeah.
it's gonna go from 5 to 20.
They want to go from, RMD.
Currently have RLD, there's on the screen right now. There is this really deep green right here where the cursor is, that's current OS zoning, a lot of that is gonna be a consistent change. There's this kind of lightish shade of green, which is the RA, and then there's this middle shade of green, which is the RLD. It's hard to see because this parcel, the one that the person who applied for actually owns and could apply for.
So it's currently RL.
Is currently RLD. Side of Muddy Creek, it's RLD.
What's this?
One dwelling for 5 acres.
It's RLD.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what are we?
So what is that?
Right. Bed and breakfast, homes or areas. Like bar this. Special fashion, farmers and facilities, landscapers, but we weren't given the power. Yeah, there are uses that, provide.
And just to be clear, those uses are here,
Are not allowed in RLD.
Thank you.
That would be.
Farming allowed in RLD, and that's the current use.
Okay.
So, like, is it like they're looking at, in your discussion, are they looking to do something like agritourism adjacent?
No, actually, her comment, or her question asked us about how to, try to make sure they're eligible for, financial incentives and support for ag. So we've been talking, there are several different programs like, the state tax assessment, you can reduce tax assessment, there are easements.
Like he wants to do ag tourism.
Not yet. She's not specifically saying that, she's looking at ways that they can do, that they can.
But
Yeah.
that's where you're gonna get the grants. It's from ag
That's where
tourism.
you get. Right, so you get RA, you get, may get some subsidized.
There,
Benefits.
Yeah.
there is for right now with RLD, because we've down far that we're trying to connect with it. So this is a situation where also a zoning change may not really,
Do anything one way or the other.
might be able to solve it, might be able to do what you want, do what she needs with other programs.
Is there residents on the property?
Yeah.
You know what? If we're in active, if the county is in active discussions with her, I say that we put off making a decision on this until later on. We don't actually have to make a decision on this tonight.
And she did good, right?
She did.
Yes, that's good. I'm trying to find us from. Yeah, then I'm taking one. Sorry. My, can you just explain again why not already?
Okay, so, one, we talked before about, the spot zoning, right? This is a swath of RL, as you can see, kind of how it works. We want to have one property in that's RL. If we were to do it, we want to have a house approach and say, let's take everything between Galesville and West River and make that an RA. This is, we don't have to work with property owners. We don't want to just have one property sitting out there.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
How big is your parcel? I can't find it.
Yeah, I'd say that we leave this until later on and let further information develop.
3.37
Acre.
Yeah, no, but I think total is 297 acres. It may be counting.
It's kind of complicated because originally, like I said, she applied, but you're only allowed to apply for properties you own. And she applied and put in addresses of her neighbors that might have bumped up, but like I said, she's been in contact with the neighbors and the owners aren't really interested in it.
I screenshotted what we did and it's like, it's a huge
Yeah,
parcel.
yeah, that is huge. Because the neighbors aren't interested, she's not their agent, she's not representing them, it's really just. The had those, and it's.
Well, we're, and
But it is, that's not what we are all on.
Here.
One of the things to think about is that this part of the county does not have septic, does not have sewer, all we have is septic.
Sorry.
And we're trying to keep it that way because we don't want another West River Estates or another subdivision. But with RLD, you could turn those 5 farms into a housing estate if you were going to put in high-end septic.
Here's the
But
better
it's limited, right, yes, but you're.
Yeah.
The.
For 5, so roughly what, 3 homes?
On her property.
Yeah.
On the property.
That's why they don't want to do it.
That's right.
I wouldn't want to change it either.
I asked for the critical area. Once again, for the critical area, green in critical area means RCA, that's 1 per thing, I believe. And then LDA is 1 per 4, depending upon what your underlying. setting is.
So she really can only do 1 in 20 anyways.
Yeah, so it's not really.
But it comes down to the designation for her financial purpose.
Yeah.
I'm okay holding off and continuing that conversation as long as we can talk about 004.
yeah, that's the next one to talk about. So it would be a similar kind of logic from planning and zoning on this, where this is another property owner who is, this is a historic property, historic home on it. They're actively farming it. And they want to go to R. And planning and zoning's perspective is to go to RLD, and again, it's that spot zoning concern that the property is adjacent. So, Kind of baseball color,
Yes.
and again, this is a south farm of Buddy Reed. And the adjacent zone rated oil. So for us, we're kind of being consistent with our map to avoid having a properties. We would say ROD allows the rural uses and corporate uses to maintain. Again, critical area, we could probably, it's already pretty, there's a lot of restricted on potential future development. So from our plan perspective about that consistency with adjacent zone, we recommend this goes tomorrow. This also could be a place where, you know,
Two from what? Is it R?
it's could be R1.
So,
It's R1, that's open space.
Yeah.
How big is it?
And it's open space?
Yes, there's open space.
RLB is. Yeah. 0.5 acres.
In the R.
Yeah, so they're not gonna be able to use too much anyway, so.
There's a historical.
Yeah.
That's not.
You can build it.
So because your vote online on this was 10 supporting the OPP recommendation, but 3 wanting presenting on one. So that is consensus moving forward.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would like to know. And you're, I'm accept, I not support it, but and because I want it, that piece of property, I recognize the spot zoning issue. That is an unusual piece of property. And because of its history and because of its location and their request to move it to RA, feels like a reasonable request. So the only reason is our greenstone, pretty much.
What do you lose by keeping it RLD that you get with RA?
Respecting the homeowner's request.
Also, Jim, with that other, I mean, it's historic property and they do intend to continue the historic use. But Jim did note that in RA, there are some uses that are allowed that are not allowed.
Yeah, except for the fact that this is 100% critical area or CA, that's. So the uses are even more limited.
But you can, for instance, the bed and breakfast.
That's right.
And there is a 200-year-old house that could make a fabulous bed and breakfast overlooking the water, but you can't do that with tourists.
Well, that's where you have to go to the SP. Or business if you want to do that.
And I don't know that that.
Well, actually, that's true, agritourism, does it fall under that? RA?
RA, yeah, so RA, they can be small. Yeah. Which means if each time we have an event, you have to follow the paperwork.
Okay. And the commission is working with Office of Law and offsetting zoning administration to think about changes to potentially make it streamline that, and benefit, is that right?
So right now, let's say, it'd be hard to do business in agritourism in District 9.
What is the owner's justification for moving to RA? Or the request?
It gives them more.
It was just to be able to
Give them
support maintaining the agriculture, but RLD does that as well.
Yeah.
And I don't know that they're talking about a bed and breakfast. I'm only speculating that,
Yeah.
I don't know the current owners. I know the people.
Because I like to make sure that the home, you don't take away all options from the owner, I guess. And I don't know if by going to RLD as opposed to RA, do you really gain anything one way or the other?
It's already-
Because you already are constrained by. Right, NOS. R1 and OS right now?
Yes.
R1 is this whitish color.
It sounds like the group has majority agreeing with RLD and there's some concerns and scope the public process and.
Yeah.
If you want to.
Yeah, I think we're okay, so for the.
I feel like one way on one, we would really have to go the same way on the second, because like, they're basically like apples and apples, and so like, if you spot zone one, I feel like you should spot
Yes,
zone the other.
not necessary.
But this isn't an infill lot, this is a pretty good sized parcel.
Yeah. What, 25 acres?
They don't know the differences, and when they talk to you guys, you can explain, and then they're perfectly happy to be.
Yeah. Well, we'll get another.
We can move on, say, we've gone, so for West River, we've gone to the development policy area, the plan land use and the zoning, some of the group has reached consensus on all of that. We're ready to move to Galesville. And remember Galesville, we covered a lot. Things to note, we talked about the community very interested in waterfront walkway and restoration. Looking at stormwater management improvements, and together are working with the Resilience Authority on some grant applications on some of this. From the rivers that are being involved too. We talked about the potential for this being another area that is designated for the business loan from Animal Development Corporation. And we talked about the need for parking around event and use, and we debated the housing piece of it's in the middle and versus housing there. The next slide. When we look at development policy area plan values, all of the Galesville Peninsula and the hot sauce carved out is residential or neighborhood preservation as the development policy area, and have the village center overlay shown there. Planning and zoning is recommending a change to that. And the plan land use, mainly low density residential, and then maritime and industrial. Along the northern water. We're recommending any changes from SAC on this, we see there are locations of applications for zoning. We'll talk about those. Okay. For the zoning applications, we can go to the slide of the results. We're in agreement on all of these by the consent survey on the. A couple of them were, the marinas has to say, hey, I have my industrial and maritime use, map my parcel ownership, which planning and zoning would be doing that for line cleanup work anyway, and you guys all supported that as well. There was also the application here relative to the old firehouse. And yeah, we reached agreement on all those. Kathy, do you want to talk about these?
Yeah, a couple of them. I just wanted to note that the one that's on Benning Road.
What number?
001.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
001. That particular area, I don't think there's any problem with the request there, other than it's in the African American community, and it's all the stuff starting to pile up along the road. And I'm not sure whether all the zoning, all of the requirements, like the screening and other types of things are being met there, and other properties that are next to it. And I know that's not the issue here.
That's a code for
All this stuff meaning what,
well, there's a lot of materials, it's heavy industrial materials and all, it's unsightly.
for kind of marine operations.
and it's not African American or American? No, I'm trying to understand. American.
It's county and property,
Yeah.
Oh, so, okay.
it's county and
What-
residents.
No, it's owned, I mean, it's privately. owned.
I think.
No, I mean,
I just want to make sure that it's not.
The old Woodfield house.
And
It's bringing a lot of that closer to where the African American community where they live there. Along that West Bend Road. And I'm just raising that.
yeah,
It's always, there's been.
Kathy.
Yes, and the other one is with, is on the property along Church Lane, the marina property, where it's requesting, it's requesting the, marine designation for two places on that property. One is no problem, the one that goes through the, paint shop. But there's one along the water there, and
you know, there's some sense of Church Lane is just a really small residential area, and there's some concern that if that zoning is changed, you know, what would it be changed to and how much traffic would be going along that place. The aesthetic on the waterfront right now is really just a couple of houses that are along there. And, you know, any kind of environmental impact there. So there's just some.
The parcel on the east side there, that's on the other side of Church Lane. Running on over to West River. On White State, not White State, point there.
Yeah, I think that's that, I think,
Church Lane runs right between them, right?
yes,
So there's a house already there, probably.
there's a house there, and I can speak to that, that's something that I'm involved in. And, so as you go in down Church Lane and you enter the marina, on the right, there's a building and storage yard. On the left, where that, in essence, it's all the same property, and the use on the left, I think what Kathy's talking about, is not quite as intense as the use on the right. And the use on the left driving in is, historically been used for like dinghy rack storage and like, trailer boat storage and things like that. As well as the residents, and the residents, according to, Alex Flagel, whose family owned it before the current owners, told us that, it was used as part of the marina since he was around in the sixties, something to that effect. So the idea here was, let's make it, you know, it's a split zone parcel, and let's just make it consistent with the property lines. The zoning would be the same as everywhere else. And that's really the idea there. And, you know, we certainly do.
But that would leave it open to being, you could build a restaurant there, you could build other things there, and.
Yeah, they could build a restaurant there, they couldn't build one at Woodfield's 20 years ago, they couldn't get one in Dalesville. Whole name, raised hell.
So the red line for the parcel plans, you can see, as I'm sure you've learned, the county is trying to avoid split zoning. So it is all one parcel. The majority of the parcel is this NC zoning. And they already have the land use from Plan 2040 for maritime on the entire. Are there any other questions? Comments?
Well, I'm just saying. It's gonna be some push that probably bring it.
Just give one overview. We'll see if it comes up.
That's already.
The parcel on the east was part of the contiguous part of the marina to begin with.
This
It's just the zoning split.
this piece?
Yeah.
Yeah, that part of the parcel is just the zoning is split there. I don't know if you recall at the very beginning of this process, when you were in the Deal Library, I showed you that funky park where, it was a park right next to commercial, and sometimes there was commercial on the park. Sometimes the zoning lines can wander and they don't perfectly snap to our parcel boundaries. Based upon the shape of the zoning here, it might be the case with this.
They park boats on that parcel.
Part of it also been maybe because like this house traditionally at one point belonged to like a family, and so maybe like that was at one point their residence was on.
It was owned by the, Purchase family.
Okay.
Throughout the whole time, so there's always like somebody who was working at the marina. My understanding.
Yeah, 'cause
Yeah.
I just feel like sometimes we have some odd property lines, but because it's like something.
Right.
Was made sense at one point to the family
Right.
that lived there, but
Right.
It sounds like we have agreement on this one. Let's take the whole thing to MC, and then Kathy, do you want to talk about, the firehouse?
Yeah, I
Being one spot.
Yeah, just, you know, no problem with the staff's recommendation. I think everybody, we all agree with that. We just wanna punctuate that, with, you know, no C4 zoning and Dalesville allowed. How do you really feel?
Yeah.
So, yeah, so I have a philosophical question that this discussion prompted. Because when we talk about Lincoln Middle, one of the things we were talking about was the. I'm divorcing my question from the other words, because this prompted me to ask the question. Based on what I understand, and none of our existing zoning in Region 9 really supports the possibility for missing middle house. So how do we deal with that in our discussion? Because we've said we think missing middle is needed.
Yeah.
But our zoning doesn't permit it.
Yeah, we have, this group has been crafted and reviewed, strategies related to housing that are supportive of that, saying that the county needs to figure out ways to allow missing middle. And we put the general conference, hey, we don't want a lot of housing in Region 9, but that, what's gonna be here, we do support the idea of more diversity, more options, and it should be guided towards areas where there are, like these village centers, where there is more services available. And that's, that follows in line with recreation better plan, strengthening the plan 2040 also for the government to approach, refining the updating county code with left first housing options. And just puts it on their radar, and hopefully they will be taking that up as potential legislation. So you've got the placeholder, you've got the council to work on this. And I think that's as far as we can take it in plan. You've indicated that you support the types and where generally, and then it's gonna go to the council to figure out specific what code changes they would.
Is there anything more we can do than that?
Show the council and,
I plan on doing that, being a pain in the ass.
Well, we got a suggestion, Gail, that the county meet with the different communities and kind of challenge them. You know, if we need some missing middle housing, where would you suggest, what are some properties in your area that you suggest, and let the communities kind of come up with some solutions?
Well, we need more than that. We need zoning code changes. So, and that's beyond the scope of what this group is doing. Because this group is doing feedback and input into the region plan and input into comprehensive zoning. It's almost like it's a three-legged stool, but we don't have that leg of the stool. We can make recommendations on it, but you already have.
So there's nothing else beyond what we're doing to strengthen that.
Question. So, Region 9, we have an inventory of property. And we have this idea and need, I guess, for missing middle housing. Of the inventory of properties, what falls into the category that could accept the missing middle housing? Identify those, and then are they somewhere where somebody could make a decision? So right now we're saying, what can we do to incentivize missing middle? I mean,
No.
there isn't any place. Then it's like a new point, is it not?
Well, we generally set these kind of the village centers, like Deal, Churchton, Edgewater, and Galesville potentially, are places that could be appropriate. Which I think is as far as this group can take it. There's no point in like specific parcels, we don't want to control them, but just in these areas. And then the council could take it in legislation and say, it's allowed in these village centers. And so that could be code. And then that's point.
Well, I was gonna say, I mean, when we're looking at expanding some of the commercial zoning and these spots that are right next to, I mean, I would be much more receptive to a zoning that would support the, missing middle housing in those places than to just have like another dollar for something. Like it seems to me, and we've already talked about, I don't think we have a need for a whole lot more commercial property. We have commercial property that is available and for sale. But we don't have the missing middle, so that seems to be like the right spot.
Yeah, that theme has come up in other regions as well. That's why as other regions start the same question, where is the perfect more housing? That's where all regions have identified that. Hey, I've got underutilized commercial strip stuff. Can we redevelop that for some kind of housing? And the council debated it in a redevelopment bill last year that allowed more flexibility for housing in commercial zones within some of these development policy areas. So that's kind of where there could be future connections to these policy areas that can support what you're.
So where's the chicken and the egg? This is laying the groundwork.
Yeah.
For a developer or property owner to make a decision, right?
Should they develop this into a missing little?
The next one would be, as Ms. Papa said, the county council changing our code to allow it in those areas. Yeah.
They would have to propose a new zoning to allow that, and then that's what. No, or to modify existing.
Yeah.
And the maps that we're looking at, we have corresponding language in the county code that goes with each of those. And as the most basic example, code goes from, we have single family detached, we have single family unattached, which is a townhouse. You have a duplex or a duplex. Okay, so semi-detached that's 2 units side by side, and then we have the duplex, which is one over the other. Then we go straight to multifamily. We don't have a triplex, we don't have a quadruplex.
Got it.
Quadplex, triplex is pretty much classic missing middle, right? You don't even have a definition. So most of the property in the county that's zoned for multifamily is much higher density. Like R22, R10,
So we would have to bring that down into our.
No, you say that in some of the lower density zoning districts, we're gonna define these other types like triplex and quadplex, and then we're gonna say we are gonna allow it in some of the lower density residential zones.
Yeah, well, that's what I would say. You're bringing that definition into R1 or R2.
Yes.
Yeah, right. So you're amending, yeah.
I'm gonna say that won't work in Region 9, because you take a parcel in Galesville, where you can put up a 3-unit building on a parcel in Galesville. Say you tore down topside and put in 4 apartments.
Just tear down topside.
I would venture to say that each one of those apartments would go for $400,000 or more. You're not going to get it down here. The people are willing to pay real money to have whatever it is down here. You're not going to take a parcel of land in any of these areas and say, we're going to have affordable housing here.
Well, distinctively different from affordable housing. Not the same.
They're gonna be affordable. They're gonna be.
But
Right.
So they're gonna be able to provide them, that's why you want to come and my, this, you say that, if you're the bigger, driving for local meetings, the means, this is one of the big calls, but the 2-hour government, if our zoning.
And while we do have one more committee to go through.
Yeah.
I didn't want to derail it, but I didn't want us to lose sight of the really important.
Cleared up something in my head, so I appreciate the discussion.
Okay, and just to confirm for Dalesville, we've gone through the zone policy area, land use and zoning. We're gonna add- It's the most intensive development region. So neighborhood preservation around most of the area. And then we've got what we call critical corridor, down the middle. This would be a lot in 2040. The intent is to call out that there's already more intensively developed corridors along our state highways in particular, and we have special. And it kind of what we talk about, how do you improve traffic flow in these areas? How do you promote redevelopment, utilize property in this area?
Guys.
And then we also have the village center overlay laws, the small businesses law. And then we are proposing any changes to that. And then plan language. So. land use, you see the commercial coming down the corridor and also along the road. You see the airport, there's in gray, you set the category 4 transportation infrastructure like airports. And then you see the difference in color on the left, your lighter tan is that low density residential, and then the low medium density over to the right. Some medium density residential where you got a town.
What color was that one? What?
The red, the maroon.
Yeah.
And then what's the orange? Is that just a step in between the two?
This is kind of medium density residential.
Okay, but like more than.
You have a comment?
I think the burgundy is, the condos, 55+ condos. So the other ones are townhomes that are not acreage.
Yeah, so that would be a higher density residential. Think we're adding that code like we had there.
Just that, was that purple down at the bottom below the Safeway?
This one?
Yeah.
Then I use, small business plan.
Yeah. But right now, it's just a park.
It's heavily long here.
Well, it's not in-
It's all business. Yeah, there used to be a head up there.
Yeah.
Yes. And Yorkers right
For the record, plan managed changes. So the 100 series are the ones that are relevant. We're going to be, again, it's kind of map cleanup. This 102 over here, as we look at the parcel data, I think the county on property follows the greens, we said to make that conservation, we'll look at the OS zoning, is kind of protected. Also the Wooden Beach, fire department, where that
You
hit.
don't have one. It wasn't on the.
Yeah. Well, are you talking about the new place?
There are new places on the school campus.
It's on the where that's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fairmont, you got.
They are.
Fire department actually owns a very tiny parcel that is waterfront, which is where the point of the coaster is. And so it was included in the conservation around it, but it is not a conservation property. So it's just, it's not the fire station itself, it is just a tiny parcel that they own, that the plan land is changing to match the remainder of the community because it is not in conservation.
And then, this funny shape here along the two, that's, that, I think, gas. Contractor, you know, gas, property, that's giving them kind of an industrial behind it to basically align with this having those big storage tanks. Now, aligns with urban zoning. So we changed the whole commercial like 40, was refine that to be able to let them keep their current zones at the same flash.
What's that blue thing, like near, what would that be, all the way down on the peninsula, so as you're heading towards London Town Gardens, and there's that like that teal blue?
Yeah, that's public use.
Okay.
Yeah, they did sort of.
Not
That's
that
one.
one, that's the one, and then the one next to, I forgot what that bar is. Yeah. Yeah. the one- Okay.
So Michael, there's to the west of Pike Ridge, right across from where this. There's been a lot of clearing going on. What's the status of what's back there?
Not the park.
No, that's gonna be, that's part of the Southern County, PUD, you know, that's in what the
And you know,
that, it's 47 units that are 55 and up. They already have, they're in free form.
So just basically cleanup changes from that zoning plan lands. And then let's go to the zoning. Zoning also some relative cleanup changes, you see some of the things popping out, just that on the property, that along the stream. Along the edge of the airport, it transitioned from R1 to R2. We're gonna just make that all R1. And then, let's see, these other ones are all related to the. So, we go to the application slide. So, this is start with, we had agreement and consensus on all of them from the online looping. On the planning development, while we try to like clean up parcel lines, for example, we're telling you do not, because that has plenty of development to go through a special approval process, go through the hearings officer. They pull up all the area planning development, all the zoning potential, and then they're allowed to kind of place it around, not necessarily define where the zoning is. So we don't want to change that base zoning, lest we kind of create a conflict with what's been approved. So across the county, we need planning development. We're setting an ordinance in the future, and that's kind of behind us to say, they keep all these lines, but these smears are messy, what they do, but that's why.
Like the same decision.
It's easier that way.
Okay. So, were there any Edgewater that,
I had one minor question on Edgewater 0002.
Which one is that?
Callis Funeral Home.
Oh, yeah.
this is one that we've been debating a lot,
That's, I was wondering. It wasn't clear to me if it's split zone, where's the split, where do they want the split, where are they playing?
Is it
I
a parking? Is it a parking issue that they?
I don't know. I just.
Well, we property, representing property. They're working to get a more, formal split proposal, right? So we don't, right now, we don't really know.
Okay.
We make a good.
Yeah, our templates are working on on one hand, the person may have no plans to put down, but it also is appropriate to like say this entire thing you can work with stuff that each part or But obviously, you know, funeral home is important, local business, local service. We want to respect their needs, and then there's a way to kind of accommodate or rational division.
Is this one of those where we don't really need to have a decision right now?
Correct.
And wait a little bit, since there's discussion going on?
Yes.
Okay.
No, here. Yeah.
Yeah, so the recommendation is to maintain a split of C3 and R1 property. I think the group can support that, and we'll come back and update you on where we refine that line.
Yeah, we're.
Are you guys gonna clean up some of those other lots?
Yeah.
Like, do the line cleanup?
Yeah, so that's a little bit.
Yeah, and have one corner and then the one property is like half commercial and half.
Yeah.
So on, 0007.
Yeah, we discussed that.
Properties that.
The house, small business versus.
Yeah, one we had.
Yeah, so could we decide on that?
Isn't that one? I think we did, and we talked about, it's not zoned small business, but I believe at our Saturday meeting, it was small business. That's what I wrote down.
No, I think it's currently operating.
Regardless, it's not zoned that.
Yeah, this group recommends small business.
Small business, yeah.
Thank you. I couldn't read my notes. So then we still have, with anything else on Edgewater?
Let's look kind of officially again, we reviewed the golf policy area, land use, zoning maps, we're all in consensus on those for Edgewater.
So then we have a revisitation of a piece of property on there.
Yeah. If we could pull up Mayo #1, please. I just want to spend too much time on it. I want to either come up with one or two options. One, either vote on it real fast. Or two, push it off for the discussion later on. This is
One, Mayo 0001.
Is it the lead pipes?
Is it? So the reason why we're addressing this again is because at first, so they're currently in R1, they're asking for R2, the county is recommending R1. We, on the peninsula, there's a lot of reasons we want to go to residential low density. For several reasons.
This is the.
Parcel next to the park.
Yeah, so it's this part right.
Mm,
Okay, The community is definitely against this. So this property is part of the contiguous forest area that will stretches from South River Farm Park over to Surf. It's part of the Fid, can we pull up the Fids and Greenway?
Yes.
Forest and shared growing species. Large forests, there's a specific neighborhood, this is a map based on that geometry.
Question, and the person who wasn't here on the 20th, like, where did we end up live? I mean, I'm guessing you brought this back up because we were against it, or tied, or.
So. I don't think what we expected, and it was, we weren't really ready to discuss it, and so it really didn't get discussed. Yeah. Yeah.
It is in our land right now.
Yeah.
And I don't think anybody was really ready.
So the rest of Mayo was discussed, but this is the one area where it really,
You're saying instead of doing R1, because I think I did, I wrote it was like R1, but you're saying we should be even more restrictive and go RLD.
right, instead of open space, because that was actually one thing that was discussed with going open space. But the problem with open space is if you're taking it at that point.
Yeah.
Or going RLD, you're still allowing without that full take. Okay.
The layers that we have in each request are the forest interior dwelling species, the bids, and the green infrastructure. I think I turned them both on, so it's kind of hard to differentiate, but I think the bid is this darker shade and the green infrastructure network is this lighter shade.
And we're talking about, we're talking about.
The agriculture, the gas.
Along there.
Last remaining piece they've developed.
So what is this for?
This is bids that's on right now.
This is on, so this is all in the bids, can you do the green? Oh, so
The turn off the.
I got you.
That way not confusing. And it's the layer below that, you have greenways.
Oh, I'm just sold. There, that makes sense.
And so it's also in the green, so as well as this is all on the peninsula. A peninsula overlay, which is limited development. There's a lot of reasons to go this direction as opposed to R1 or R2 is the developer is asking for.
How much money? Can we take a vote?
What is the, what are we, with the? Are we trying to take it from one, what is?
So it's R1 now.
It's R1 now,
It's R1 now. They're requesting R2.
and the county's saying,
The county is recommending R1.
right,
The community wants less, so RLB is less, so that's one foundation every 5 acres. So right now, I think this is 42 acres, can't remember the exact, but they want to put 42 homes on it currently. Oh, yeah. So being on the peninsula overlay, right? It's the plan 2040, put this in as, reduced or RLD as well. So that is also another reason for this. So there's a lot of reasons to actually take this to RLD. So
why wasn't the consequences then with RLD? We might look in the. You go. Plan for you.
that's another part.
I just turned on the plan land use over, so everywhere that's this sandy color is where it's your residential, and you can see the park next door is parks and open space. There's some conservation, which is the teal color.
R1 is consistent with the related to the fire.
So another aspect is this is an HOA. Right here is a stormwater pond that drains right into this. And so that's also going to be a problem. I don't know about this because I live right there.
I think it would be wholeheartedly with you. You commented on, we are, I mean, in 2040 plan, we're supposed to be looking further down the road.
Right.
And the way things are going on this peninsula,
Mhm.
they're gonna be hard pressed to find a piece of woods, particularly if it's adjoining a park.
The problem with the Mayo Peninsula is infill lots, and it's killing us.
Right.
Because the infrastructure just can't support it, and it's on a peninsula.
So we're talking about this quickly.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what I was gonna ask them, that piece.
Yeah.
And we'll also talk about that piece, I know these not a lot.
No, it's the same.
Oh, it's a part of this piece.
It's all said.
Right, sorry, excellent.
So at this point, we can, I would like to take one of two, yes.
So before you, this is additional information. R&D is like our reason for the no public sewer service. That is something that we are moving it out. Have to kind of feel out of state for whether or not they would consider that an inconsistency. But, I've been also looking for hearing the response. That's something. They brought from the county's perspective. You have to.
Sure. I mean, again, this is just our. Yeah.
Well, not really popular.
Not gonna bring us around on this. Probably not. So it's separate recommendation.
Right, yes, you don't have a certain state that recommends on the lead, but OPZ recommends on.
So, yeah, I didn't want to take too much time.
Well, it's just like the pedestrian overpass.
I was just gonna say that.
That we can recommend something, and the county council and the county can say, they can take it away from us. Okay, and so, there's a property on the other side of the road coming in.
There was, this is a piece as well, they asked for,
R2. Their justification was they were feeling it was a tax burden,
Right.
And they were trying to avoid that tax, but because it's undeveloped land, it really.
There's property.
so, yeah.
Yeah.
So the recommendation.
I have to be careful because I'm going to look at it.
But you're the same.
So.
Yeah, that's a separate issue.
You wanna make a motion?
You should make it.
Complete,
Yeah, let's start with one, this is Mayo one.
this one, two options are, we can push off and think about it till later, or go with an RLD.
All in favor of RLD? I would like to make a motion to recommend, for SAC to recommend RLD for this. Second. All in favor?
How many people was that?
I found 7.
Virginia's that good.
8. Hamilton, your hands are just on top of your head.
That's what your hands down. We have an extension.
Jasper.
Does anybody have?
Close.
And we have one member not here.
And opposed.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah, but I think it should say R1. This is my opinion.
Okay. After you get your online.
I don't know, Gerardo, did you wanna vote, Gerardo? You can either use the chat feature or the raise hand if you wanna say something, otherwise I'll just assume you're using the microphone.
Yeah, text them to vote.
I did, I just literally texted them and said, hey.
Anyway.
Okay, so then we talk about the vote time property. Then we'll- Oh, this is yes, okay.
We agree with.
Gerardo, he's voting yes for the RLD.
Gerardo voted yes.
That's 9 in favor.
Yeah.
1 opposed, 1 abstaining.
Yeah. Correct.
I'm missing person.
Nah.
Oh, I'm missing somebody here.
No. Are we gonna? Oh.
You-
Stand up. Oh, you didn't tell me.
Good, I'm proposing.
Yeah, you can't look at it.
Hold on, this.
Okay, so the bow tie property, I just want to talk about that one again. I don't have to talk about that. I missed that.
We did.
We did.
They requested, they're currently at R1. They requested to go to R2. He talked about, using some financial traits and wanted to get into something about property, essentially.
This sounds what we.
And then we recommend R1. Consistent with the development on site, and consistent with our goal about not increasing the density on fences.
So, should we recommend RLD for this also, or should we leave this as we discussed it on SAC?
You know,
I think we should.
Seven.
so.
He is 1 for 5. Doesn't he already have 2?
It's,
Building on it.
We would have the same issue with this, with the sewer issues, this.
The problem with this is it's all wetline. So even
Let Article 17 prevail and pass our environmental requirements in it.
So then we don't need to do anything.
who brought this up?
He had pointed out, so I was.
Fit on Saturday.
At R1.
so any other thoughts, comments, questions, motions on the?
No, we'll leave it where it is.
That being said, do we need to do a wrap up of May on them or?
No.
No, we already did that.
We're done.
Yeah. So I think we are done.
Great.
There's a couple quick points. First of all, thank you all for spending like 7 hours to discuss zoning. And plus the hours of homework you guys have done. But we're not done quite yet. So next Thursday, we're gonna lock you in our offices until we hammer out a vision statement strategy. There were a few we had to revisit. So we come prepared to discuss those. And that meeting can be as short as long as we make.
We're coming to you.
So if you have a good conversation, a good discussion about the vision statement and what you guys really think should be in the vision statement, as well as the remaining strategies.
Well, can I make a suggestion? Could we have like a ballot box or something when we come in, so you can put in like whatever your thoughts are, and then we could look at that overall before we all start discussing?
Well, we should do that to the survey.
Okay, big survey, or something.
We can remind you of where the votes have been.
We did it, yeah. Well, I know we did some stuff, but then I think there was more discussion.
And I would remind you, as we go into the discussion of the vision, our focus is on the elements, not on the language. If we will spend the entire time discussing whether it should be one word or another. So our focus should be on context.
I think that's where we are now, but just content. I don't think we're arguing over the words.
We will like that. Keep me the straight chart. Want to see it?
So other than that, again, another thing we want to keep pushing is the transportation questionnaire. Keep sending that out. We have the flyers, you guys can sit in and attach it. On Facebook, on social media. We have a lot of good feedback already. How many hundreds of people do we have?
443 responses.
So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I credit that a lot of people sending this information, out to your networks, yeah.
Yeah.
In your Google Drive, folder, you've got PDFs and JPEG, you can print them and put them in the Separate Cafe, email, Facebook. So get the word out, the more feedback you get, the better, that way. That also helps the primary community know that the summer they'll get a chance to review these zoning maps, because we want to see a lot of public comment. Those, make sure that they work this out.
and that's all for the staff. So unless there's anything else, this is our first meeting we've been through.
Getting it done.
There's no motion to- second, like,
I would like to motion to adjourn. Thank you, everybody.
it's back up.
So, you're gonna